The verdict of the Galactic Council. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with a soft glow of luminescent panels, casting an ethereal light over the gathered delegates. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in their designated seats, some floating in grav pods, others coiled on raised platforms, their various forms filling the vast hall with an uneasy energy. At the center of it all, the speaker, a towering selection with iridescent blue skin, raised a hand for silence. Today, we decide the fate of humanity, the speaker intoned, their voice resonating through the chamber. Shall they be granted full membership in the council, with all rights and responsibilities, including military engagement in interstellar affairs? Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some species had grown fond of humanity, admiring their adaptability and ingenuity, while others saw them as an anomaly, a civilization that had defied galactic norms by remaining peaceful for centuries. A representative from the reptilian Zargath Empire slithered forward, his scaled hide glinting under the chamber's glow. Grand Marshal Vek Ras, his title an indication of his species' warlike nature, sneered. Humans are weak. They fear war. They hide behind diplomacy and trade, content to let others fight their battles. His yellow eyes locked onto the human delegation. Tell me, Ambassador Calloway, when was the last time your species fought a real war? Ambassador James Calloway, humanity's representative, remained seated. He was an older man, his face lined with experience, his posture composed. He clasped his hands together and offered a polite smile. It has been some time, he admitted. We resolved our conflicts centuries ago. We saw no need to continue the cycle of violence when diplomacy proved more effective. A clicking sound echoed through the hall as Chancellor Vrul, the Krilith representative, tapped his many chitinous fingers against the table. A noble sentiment, the insectoid delegate said, his mandibles twitching. But it is also the sentiment of prey. The galaxy is not kind to those who refuse to fight. Laughter rippled through the chamber, but Calloway's expression remained unreadable. He simply listened, waiting. The speaker continued. It is the Council's belief that full membership requires participation in all aspects of galactic stability, including defense. However, humanity has repeatedly declined to contribute military forces to conflicts in the past. This calls into question their suitability as a full member species. Calloway gave a slow nod. That is your concern. Not that we lack the ability, but that we lack the will. Exactly, Vek Ras hissed. Humans have no warrior spirit. You do not belong in matters of war. A soft chime interrupted the proceedings. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, and the assembly turned their attention to it. A priority transmission from the outer colonies. A Zargath fleet had launched an incursion into neutral space, attacking a mining outpost along the border. The Krilith, seizing the opportunity, had invaded another sector, beginning their own campaign. War had come again. The speaker turned to the council. This is an act of aggression that threatens the stability of our region. We must vote on military intervention. Vek Ras and Vrul smirked. They knew the council's response would be slow, measured, ineffective. They counted on it. One delegate, a member of the diplomatic Imnari species, turned to Calloway. Surely now, humanity will step forward and prove itself. Calloway exhaled softly. His blue eyes flicked toward the display, then to the speaker. The council has made it clear that they believe humans are unfit for war. I would hate to disappoint. The sarcasm was subtle, but those who knew humanity well sensed something beneath his calm demeanor. Vek Ras snorted. A wise decision. Stay out of our way, human. The speaker turned to Calloway. Then, to confirm, Earth will not intervene. Calloway finally stood, smoothing out the sleeves of his uniform. Oh, we will intervene, he said casually, just not in the way you expect. The chamber fell silent. Something about the way he said it unsettled them. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. Humanity's war had just begun, a line in the sand. The war spread like wildfire. The Krilith Dominion and the Zargath Empire, locked in their endless feud, expanded their battles beyond their borders. Neutral planets burned, trade routes collapsed, and entire colonies fell silent under the weight of invasion. The Galactic Council, as expected, issued stern warnings and called for peace talks, warnings that went ignored in peace talks that never materialized. And humanity? Humanity watched. For weeks, Earth's representatives remained silent, adhering to their reputation as pacifists. The Council took it as further proof of human cowardice. The other species, who had long considered humanity an oddity, nodded in agreement. The great powers waged war, and the weak humans kept to themselves. Then, the raids began. The first strike, it started as an isolated attack. A Krilith warband, seeing humanity as easy prey, launched a raid on the mining colony of Belron IV. Expecting no resistance, they stormed the settlement, slaughtering workers and taking what resources they could carry. The distress beacon sent one last desperate message before falling silent. Days later, a Zargath battle group ambushed a civilian transport en route to a human-controlled system. The ship had carried thousands of refugees, fleeing from worlds caught in the crossfire. No warning, no demands, just destruction. The Galactic Council convened again, murmuring about unfortunate casualties of war. The speaker called for restraint. The other species shook their heads with pity, muttering about how humans should have known better than to remain unarmed in a dangerous galaxy. What they did not realize, what they had never considered, was that humanity's silence was not one of fear. It was one of calculation. The declaration. When Ambassador Calloway stepped onto the council floor again, the chamber felt different. There was no more laughter, no more dismissive sneers. The recent raids had drawn sympathy from some, but most expected the usual human response: diplomatic protests, empty appeals for peace. Calloway, however, was done talking. He approached the speaker's podium, his footsteps deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the soft diplomacy the council had come to expect from humans. Humanity does not fear war. Silence. We have never feared it. We merely chose to avoid it. His gaze swept across the gathered representatives, pausing on the Krilith and Zargath delegations. But that choice was taken from us. So now, we will remind this galaxy why we made that choice in the first place. The chamber erupted in confusion. The speaker frowned. Ambassador Calloway, what are you saying? Calloway met the speaker's gaze, unblinking. I am saying that Earth is mobilizing. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Vekras of the Zargath scoffed. You expect us to believe that your fragile species has the means to fight a real war? Calloway's lips curled into the faintest smile. Oh, we do. A holographic projection appeared above the chamber. Real-time data streamed in from military command centers across human space. Ships that had been dormant for centuries powered up, their weapons systems coming online. Fleets began moving into position. Logistics networks that had lain unused for generations roared to life, supplying troops, ammunition, and war machines to the front. 1,000 worlds, unified under the banner of humanity, prepared for war. And the galaxy watched in horror. The sleeping giant stirs. The Galactic Council had made an error, but not in underestimating human strength. Their mistake had been assuming humanity lacked the will to use it. For centuries, Earth had built. They had studied war, refined strategy, and prepared for conflicts that never came. Their fleets had not rusted. They had been perfected. Their soldiers had not softened. They had evolved. And now, after generations of peace, they were unleashing the full force of a civilization that had mastered the art of war, and then chosen to lock it away. Until now, the Krilith and Zargath fleets had expected to continue their campaigns unchallenged. Instead, their ships began disappearing. Supply convoys were ambushed in the dark void of space. Entire battalions were cut off, their communications jammed, their forces isolated. Human ground forces, fewer in number but superior in technology and tactics, began systematically dismantling enemy footholds. And when the first captured Krilith commander was asked what had happened, he uttered a single, trembling sentence. They hunt us. The turning point. Back in the council chamber, The speaker tried to regain control of the chaos. Ambassador Calloway, this escalation is dangerous. The war is already spiraling out of control. Calloway fixed the speaker with a cold stare. You think we don't know that? You let them slaughter our people, raid our colonies. You watched. You did nothing. His voice hardened. So now, we do what you wouldn't. Vrul, the Krilith Chancellor, clicked his mandibles. You cannot expect to win against two great war powers. Calloway's smile didn't reach his eyes. We don't expect to win. We expect to end it. The chamber fell into stunned silence. For the first time, the Galactic Council saw humanity for what it truly was, not a race of cowards, nor of pacifists, but something far more terrifying, a species that had spent centuries restraining itself. And now, they had nothing left to hold them back. The sleeping giant awakens. The first mistake the Krilith and Zargath made was believing humanity would fight like any other species. They expected brute force, reckless assaults, and grand declarations of war. Instead, humanity responded with something far more terrifying: precision. Fleet movements that seemed random at first revealed themselves as a meticulously coordinated strategy. Supply chains crumbled under invisible strikes. Entire battalions vanished in the night, their last transmissions filled with panic and confusion. And then humanity stopped holding back. The first battle, the fall of Rixer 7. Rixer 7 was a fortress world, a vital Zargath stronghold along the contested border. Heavily fortified, shielded by orbital defenses, and manned by elite Zargath warriors, it had never fallen in battle. The Zargath warlords expected a siege, a prolonged war of attrition. Instead, they awoke to find their orbital defenses offline, their communication relays jammed, their supply depots detonated in synchronized explosions, shattering their ability to fight before a single human soldier landed. Then came a final blow. Human dropships descended from orbit, releasing heavily armored infantry who moved with precision and ruthless efficiency. Unlike Zargath shock troops, who relied on brute force, human soldiers adapted in real time, shifting strategies mid-battle. Drones swept through the ruins, feeding information directly into command networks. Advanced rail weapons punched through Zargath armor as if it were paper. By the time the Zargath commanders realized what was happening, it was too late. The planet fell within hours, not days. The Galactic Council received the news in stunned silence. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They had rewritten the rules of war. The Krilith retaliate and fail. Enraged, the Krilith Dominion mobilized one of their largest fleets to crush humanity before they could gain further ground. A massive armada of organic warships, bristling with weapons and biological terror weapons, advanced toward the Soul border. The Krilith expected to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. They did not expect the minefields. As the first wave of Krilith ships entered human space, thousands of dormant, undetectable mines activated, each a self-learning AI programmed to target vital weak points. Explosions rippled through the fleet in chaotic, unpredictable patterns. Survivors fled, only to find themselves ambushed by human warships lying in wait, positioned with mathematical precision to cut off retreat routes. The Krilith fleet, once 300 strong, was reduced to fewer than 50 ships before it managed to retreat. The surviving Krilith admiral, upon reporting back to the Dominion High Command, spoke only 3 words. We were prey. The psychological war begins. Humanity understood something the rest of the galaxy did not. War is not just about weapons, but the mind. They intercepted enemy communications and altered them, spreading misinformation that caused entire Krilith and Zargath units to turn on each other. Holographic decoys led enemy forces into ambushes. Terrifying broadcasts filled enemy frequencies, recordings of soldiers disappearing mid-sentence, their fates unknown. And then there were the disappearances. Zargath and Krilith warlords, previously untouchable, began vanishing without a trace. No signs of forced entry, no evidence left behind. One by one, The architects of war were erased from existence. Rumors spread. Some said the humans had invisible assassins, capable of striking in the heart of fortified strongholds. Others whispered about ghost ships that prowled deep space, appearing only to eliminate high-value targets before vanishing into the void. For the first time, the enemies of humanity began to fear the dark. The Council's growing horror. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the mood had shifted from arrogance to unease. What have we done? A Silthian representative murmured, watching the latest battle reports. We believe they were weak. The speaker turned to Calloway, his expression unreadable. Ambassador, your people have unleashed destruction unlike anything we have seen. Surely, now that your colonies are safe, you will consider peace. Calloway studied the speaker for a long moment before responding. You think this is about peace? His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. Our people were slaughtered. You watched and did nothing. Now, you wish to dictate when we should stop. He leaned forward. No, this does not end until they understand what they have awoken. The silence that followed was not one of disagreement. It was one of fear. The final warning. Across the galaxy, Krilith and Zargath forces, once confident in their dominance, now found themselves on the defensive. Humanity's campaign was relentless, methodical, and unstoppable. Then, at the height of the war, humanity broadcast a single message to the leaders of the Krilith Dominion and the Zargath Empire. It contained no threats, no ultimatums, just a simple phrase. You had a chance. The meaning was clear. There would be no negotiations, no mercy, only the end, the Council's reckoning. The war was over before the Krilith and Zargath realized they had lost. Their fleets were in ruins. Their warlords, once untouchable, had vanished or surrendered. Their soldiers, seasoned veterans of countless battles, now whispered in hushed voices about the nightmare that was humanity's war machine. But humanity did not celebrate. There were no victory parades, no grand speeches. Only cold efficiency as they finished what had been started. The last stand of the Krilith Dominion. The Krilith Dominion, in one final desperate act, consolidated what remained of its military strength on Ulzvac, its homeworld. A last stand. A fortress surrounded by layers of defense fleets and planetary shields. They believed they could survive. They were wrong. Humanity did not launch a massive invasion. No grand fleets appeared in orbit. Instead, a series of small, precise strikes disabled the Dominion's planetary defenses in a matter of hours. Stealth bombers, unseen and undetectable, eliminated key command structures before the Krilith High Command even realized they were under attack. And then silence. No enemy forces landed. No ships filled the sky. For 3 days, the Krilith waited in terror, their forces exhausted and their command in disarray. Then, on the 4th day, the message came. A simple transmission, broadcast across the planet. You are already dead. That night, Krilith leaders fled their bunkers, trying to escape the planet. They were intercepted in orbit, their vessels systematically disabled, their fates sealed. By sunrise, the Dominion had collapsed. The Zargath Empire begs for mercy. The Zargath were warriors, proud, arrogant, but even they had limits. With their fleets shattered and their armies broken, their emperor finally sent a desperate plea to the Galactic Council. The humans have proven their strength, he admitted in a private transmission to the speaker. We acknowledge their dominance. Please, help us broker peace. The speaker turned to Ambassador Calloway, his voice heavy with caution. Ambassador, surely now, with their forces in retreat, humanity will negotiate terms? Calloway's expression remained unreadable. Terms. The speaker hesitated. Yes, a treaty, a way to end this conflict before. Calloway leaned forward. You misunderstand, he said coldly. This war ended the moment they made humanity their enemy. There are no terms, only consequences. The speaker's skin darkened, a visible sign of fear in his species. Ambassador, this is extermination. Calloway didn't blink. No, he said quietly. This is justice. The Council's fear. The Galactic Council, once the ruling authority of the galaxy, now found itself powerless. The great warring empires, the ones who had shaped galactic politics for centuries, had been humbled not by a larger force, but by a species they had mocked as weak. And now, humanity had no equal. The speaker called for an emergency session, his voice unsteady as he addressed the chamber. The war is over. The balance of power has shifted. We must decide how the galaxy, will move forward. For the first time, the room was silent. No species dared speak first. No one wanted to be the one to draw humanity's gaze. Finally, the speaker turned to Calloway. Ambassador, what does humanity want? Calloway studied the assembly, his expression unreadable. Then, finally, he spoke. We want peace, he said simply. A murmur of relief swept through the room. Then he added, but never again will we be called weak. Never again will we be mocked as pacifists. Never again will we sit idly by while our people bleed. His gaze swept across the chamber, locking onto the remaining Zargath and Krilith representatives. They could not meet his eyes. We will take our place in this council, Calloway continued. Not as the weaklings you once thought us to be, but as the ones who ended the war you could not. He stepped forward, his voice calm but absolute. This is the new order. Humanity does not seek conquest, but we will never be threatened again. Then, after a long pause, he delivered the final words that would forever change the galaxy. We were never scared of war. We simply hoped you'd never force us to show you why. The council chamber remained silent. And in that silence, the galaxy understood humanity was no longer just another species. They were the ones who decided when wars ended.